Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday live stream with NFA Live. I'm joined as ever by friend of the show, Guy from Coin Bureau. Guy, how are you doing on this beautiful green day?
I'm very well, thank you, Rob. I'm very well. I'm enjoying the green. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I like to see the green. It's very rare, so I'm happy to be here. And then, of course, Benjamin Cohen, the CRYPTOVERSE. How are you feeling today about this nice green day?
It's always good to be on green day, right?
Well, exactly right. Let's get into it, shall we? This ought to be spicy. So, as we all know, as we've woken up and taken a look at our portfolios, I'm sure everybody else has, we've got Bitcoin, who's done a pretty good job so far. We're at roughly 90. Let me refresh this. This could be even higher. Well, close enough. 96,827. I think we went over 96 or 97. 24-hour and 7-day rallies looking pretty sharp, pretty good across the board. And also, if we're looking at privacy coins, even better. I know Monero and Dash had a nice little play. But here's my question for you guys, which is this. This is a nice rally. Is it a real rally or is it a relief rally? Because if I take a look at the ETF inflows, this is looking pretty good. And in the last 2 days, you've had over $1.7 billion coming into the Bitcoin ETF. And actually, January 13th to January 14th are number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in the all-time high Bitcoin ETF flows. And on top of that, we are having massive liquidity. M2 money supply is at its all-time high it's ever been. I can take a look at this website. Looks pretty good. And it looks like, yeah, that's what it is. Then also, we're talking a look at inflows or M2 money supply. We have the NASDAQ M2 money supply ratio also at its all-time high. So we're looking at some pretty good things. Clarity Act is here, regulation. We have the actual inflows as far as liquidity. We have the macro looking reasonably well. We don't have massive inflation and things are looking so fantastic. So is this real or is this a relief? Guy, I want to start with you on this one.
Okay, why don't I give some positives about it? Because I think there are definitely some positives to take here. I think to start with, crypto, I think, was heavily oversold. So I think, in terms of timeliness, I feel like this rally is well timed. I think part of it you could say is probably because it was also being very heavily shorted. So I think possibly or almost certainly a large factor in this current rally is shorts getting squeezed. So that's something to consider. That's not necessarily good news, but that's how crypto works, right? When things go down, when prices move down, it gets worse because longs get stopped out, and it works the other way around as well. So we can enjoy the short squeeze, unless of course you were short, in which case you're probably suffering right now. But that's not our concern right now. An interesting thing, if I can just share my screen.
Absolutely.
I spotted this from, this is an interesting thing that Will Clemente found on Glassnode, if you can pop that up, which shows that OG whale distribution has slowed down a lot. And for those of you who were around last year in December, well, for a lot of Q4, you'll know that Bitcoin OGs and whales, OG whales offloading has been a big sort of headwind for price recently. So the fact that appears to be at least slowing down is definitely good news. That's something that we should celebrate as well. In terms of everything else, look, gold and silver are still hitting new highs. Stocks are still strong, which suggests that there is kind of risk on sentiment out there at the moment. There's also the fact that Trump has been making a lot of noises recently. Obviously, this action, this kind of crazy thing where he's going after Jerome Powell. Obviously, that is calling into question Fed independence and stuff like that, which is a whole other story. But really, what that says is that Trump wants the economy to run hot. He wants to print. He wants rates to drop. He wants to bring back the animal spirits. So if you factor in that along with the rising liquidity that you pointed out, Rob, that does, that points to a much more risk-on appetite amongst investors. And obviously, crypto being at the far end of the risk curve, that would, I guess, explain to a large degree why it's picking up at the moment. The question is whether it can continue. I think it can continue for Bitcoin. Whether or not it can continue for alts, I think is less clear. I personally think there's probably so many people are underwater in alts that there's going to be kind of constant selling pressure there as people look to get a better exit. But I think as well, maybe someone so you might have noticed that the fear and greed index has reverted back towards greed for the first time in quite a while. So maybe people have sort of moved past this bearish sentiment. Maybe people are just feeling more positive now as we move into a new year. But it certainly seems like we're in a slightly more risk-on environment. So that's my positive read on it.
That was very positive. I must tell you, I was expecting a little more negativity from you, Guy, but thankfully,
sorry to disappoint you, Rob.
That's okay.
I just want to be a bit more positive because I feel I've been a bit negative recently, and I think we should be celebrating green candles.
I think we should, and I think it's good of you to be positive because that gives us hope, and hope is what drives the market. Now, speaking on the other side, let's talk to Benjamin Cowan. Ben, what do you think about this relief rally or this real rally? Take it away.
Look, it could be a real rally. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think it's really similar to, I don't know. I think you could say it's really similar to all the relief rallies we had at the very beginning of all the other prior midterm years. So when I look at something like that, it's hard for me to assume that it has to be different this time. Obviously it could be. It's not like anyone's have a crystal ball, but let me see if I can share my screen really quick here. We actually talked a lot. We talked a lot about this rally actually, because usually what happens when the bear market starts is you basically get several months down, and then you get your relief rally. So if you look at say the 50-week moving average and the 100-week moving average and the 200-week moving average, if you just kind of go through these three moving averages, you can tell a pretty familiar story, and that is that once you lose the 50-week, you then go to the 100-week and you try to hold there for a little while. You get a couple of rallies, it fails, and then you go to the 200-week, right? So you can see that's what happened in 2014. And if you continue on in 2018 to the 50, to the 100, to the 200, and then if we continue on in 2022, lose the 50, go to the 100, bounce a couple of, have a couple of relief rallies back up to the 50, rejected, go back down to the 200, and even below the 200. And then this time, you go below the 50. Now we're at the 100. It's kind of bouncing back up to the 50. I guess for me, there's still a good chance we inevitably find ourselves at the 200-week moving average sometime within the next 12 months, Now, I can't say for sure. Obviously, the mechanics of the way this cycle topped were different. We arguably topped on apathy rather than euphoria. And so I've actually been more so comparing to the 2019 downturn, where we also found some support around the 100-week moving average, got a bounce, and then still went down. Now, I don't really think we're going to have to worry about a pandemic repeat. But I think the point is nothing moves in a straight line. We're not, price doesn't move monotonically. What it usually does is it'll move down. If you look at the last two bear markets, whether you take QT or QE coming off of Q, in 2022, we had 3 red months and then 2 green and then 3 more red, right? We already had 3 red. We're now in our first green. You go to 2019, we had 3 red and then we had 1 green. Right now we have 3 red. We're in our first green. I guess for me, in order to be convinced that it's more than just a relief rally, I'd want to see us getting multiple weekly closes back above the 50-week moving average, because usually that's what we failed to do. In 2022, we just got a couple right above it and then right back down. In 2018, we were not able to get back above it. In 2014, we were not able to get back above it either. So I think that, for me, if we can get back above that on maybe 2 to 3 weekly closes, then I'd start to consider it being more than a relief rally. But until then, I would argue it's more of a relief rally. And then the last thing I'll say is if you look at USDT dominance plus USDC dominance, this is a really common pattern that we've seen throughout a lot of different markets. Like we've seen this on even on Bitcoin dominance. I'd be remiss if I didn't work there. If you look at Bitcoin dominance, you can see the same pattern where you have these highs, and then when it finally breaks through, it gets a pullback, and then it goes higher. So I think that if you look at USDT dominance plus USD C dominance, you can see that we've kind of had those same types of highs, and then we just broke through it. It's getting the correction back down. But I think that, unfortunately, this is kind of like the breakout, and then we're now just in the consolidation phase where the market is digesting this move. But I'm thinking there's a good chance stablecoin dominance will find support here, and then it'll head higher into the dog days of the summer. So that's my guess. Sorry to be negative. Hopefully that's not what happens, but it just seems like every midterm year has been like that, and I don't want to pretend like it can't just be a relief rally.
Well, I have to say, that is an honest take, and that is the thing. I know someone in the comment section said, Ben is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, just giving us the information. So I appreciate the reality and not the craziness. And then Guy, I appreciate being positive, because in the long run, I think we're all going to do pretty well. It's just sticking it out. So there's a poll that I just did right now. If you guys could answer that. If you watched last week's NFA live show, who was more bearish? Would be me from last week, because I told everybody they're never going to make it, or would it be Ben just talking just a little bit about some bearishness? Let me know what you think about that in the poll. Let's move on to the second question, which is the Clarity Act. Now, if there's one thing that could push us to higher highs, would be a little bit of regulation clarity. And because of the Clarity Act coming through, maybe that could be the case. Unfortunately, there's been some people who have said this is not a great act. First, the one being Brian Armstrong. And I understand the argument of people saying, well, who cares what Brian Armstrong thinks? He's just trying to enrich his own pockets because this really would benefit him. And if the Clarity Act goes against it, then of course he's going to be very negative for it. So we have that. However, there have been people who have been ringing the alarm for quite some time. One of those would be Lewis over at Coin Bureau. Matter of fact, just did a great video 6-7 days ago. I link in the description. You can see what he said, and it is dynamic research, and it made me really think about what's happening with this Clarity Act. Also, around that same time, another gentleman, Aaron Day, which we talked about a couple of days ago, and I linked this post in the description as well. And you can just kind of see it, because I know what people are thinking. They're like, shut up about the negativity for Clarity Act and just let it pass so my bags can keep going. But there are 4 big things here. One, there's a ban on stablecoin rewards, unless you're the banks or USDC or Tether. So if you're holding it, the individual, you don't get squat. DeFi regulations, this is more surveillance. They're going to be watching you more. So essentially, DeFi now is KYC AML. So have fun with that. And then also, they're going to be a ban on tokenized equities. So if you want to do anything with stocks or something like that, it's not going to happen. If they do anything more with tokenization, that's going to crush the whole industry. And then also an expansion on the SEC authority. We saw what happened, that great thing with Gary Gensler. But we'll see how it all plays out. So my question for you guys is, where are we here with this Clarity Act? Would you just rather just go forward, or do you think there's actually some legitimate concerns, and where do you stand here? And then, Ben, since you were talking, go ahead and take this one away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think that, I don't really think it's what many people thought it was going to be originally. I think it's not really about consumer protection as much as maybe just who controls all the different financial rails. I don't think Armstrong he's not mad because Coinbase would lose any money. He's more so mad because, like, I feel like it just turns crypto into just another brokerage wrapper. And the banks as the yield providers. And so I don't really think it's great for innovation. So I think like it kind of makes sense that some of these leaders, I guess you could say, of the crypto industry are coming out against it. Is it doesn't really leave, I feel like it doesn't really leave a lot of room for innovation. I feel like it more so favors like incumbents of the industry rather than potentially future leaders. So for me, like I honestly haven't really spent too much time thinking about it. I just you know, the news cycle to me is you know, it's to a large extent it's just noise. Like it doesn't actually mean anything like in the short term. So I guess I would say that my guess is it's going to take a lot longer for this thing to pass, right? That's my guess. I think that, you know, the surveillance rules and whatnot definitely favors the regulators. It just kind of seems like it's, what's the right word? It seems like it's almost like antithetical in a way to a lot of maybe what people thought crypto was going to be. So yeah, hopefully they can redo some things and it can eventually be better. But I think in the short term, I would be surprised if it actually ended up going through.
You know what? Your sentiment is actually shared by Charles Hoskinson. He put out a video a couple of days ago where he said that because we're in the midterms, Democrats are not big proponents of crypto. And since they're trying to win seats, they're not going to support the Trump administration and their push for clarity in cryptocurrency. They're going to shoot that down as much as possible. And he said, and it makes sense, and actually it goes back to what you were talking about, Ben, as far as like the midterm years. This is where the volatility happens because the market doesn't know exactly where things are going. I can just tell you, I believe that the Republicans will lose the House and then we'll have a split Congress and that'll be what it is. And I think Charles Hoskinson said, if it doesn't happen by this first quarter, then it's going to take until 2029 to go through. And that would really put us in a bind. But maybe I'm too bearish. So for that.
And dude, if you need a narrative for if this is just a relief rally, maybe that is the narrative. Maybe it doesn't actually pass. And then everyone's like, oh, now we got to wait 3 more years, you know?
Exactly. Or the people who are playing the liquids and shorts are like, hey, this will be a great opportunity. So that would lead me to Guy, same thing. Where do you think we're at as far as the declared? And again, tell Lewis, great job on that video. I did like that.
It was a good job, wasn't it? And I think an interesting point to raise from that, because he talked about Coinbase in that, you know, and Coinbase's current position. And it's interesting to consider what hat Brian Armstrong is wearing when he tweeted out those tweets that you showed earlier. Because on the one hand, like, you know, to be fair to him, he started off as, you know, as a believer, you know, as a maybe cypherpunk is perhaps a little a little bit of a stretch, but you know, he, I think, certainly believed then, and you would hope believes now in, you know, some of the founding principles of crypto. So, but at the same time, you know, if the Clarity Act is passed in its current form, Coinbase is going to be one of the big winners. Because it basically, you know, as Lewis pointed out in that video, its moat against future startups, you know, against future competitors, just gets wider and wider. So the likes of Coinbase and BlackRock are big winners from this. And of course, you know, stablecoin incumbents, because the Clarity Act in its new form is going to make it very difficult for any other stablecoins to challenge the Tether and Circle dominance. And of course, when you consider that Coinbase gets a substantial cut of the reserves backing USDC, you know, you can see why Coinbase stands to win from this. So I'm curious as to whether, you know, how Brian Armstrong kind of feels about this, because on the one hand, okay, you know, some of the principles that presumably attracted him to crypto in the first place are being threatening to be undermined by Clarity. On the other hand, the company that he has built is set to benefit massively and is one of the incumbents. But I think, you know, the big problem is, and I think in that diagram that you threw up at the start of the question, The things that most trouble me are the fact that the banks are getting in on this. They want to keep the yield from stable coins, and the hostility to DeFi, because DeFi is one of the genuine innovations of crypto, and is one of the things that is one of the ways that crypto enables people to push back, because as so many people have pointed out, over the years, you deposit your money in a bank. What interest? I mean, the interest you will get on your savings is laughable. Even when interest rates climbed, the bank still, you don't get the market rate. The bank keeps most of it, and DeFi was a way around that. So this is a question. This is the banks and the powers that be, if you like, trying to co-opt crypto, trying to co-opt this new space and this new technology. And I guess if you look at it from the point of view of an enemy of the industry, whether that's a Democrat or whether that's just someone who is fundamentally opposed to it for whatever reason, I guess if you're thinking about, well, how do I express my enmity? How do I express my hostility towards this industry? This is a pretty good way to do it, because it's proved a lot more resilient than many people thought. Many people thought it would just disappear or it would all go to zero or whatever. And that has not been the case, despite the fact that we've had a very, very tough year, and the 4-year cycle appears to be breaking down, and alts have had an absolute shocker, etc. Right. Crypto is more embedded and stronger and used by more people than it's ever been, and it's not going away. And I think a lot of people who are hostile to it have come to realize that now. So how do you destroy it? You assimilate it. You don't try and burn it to the ground. You let the banks, you let the incumbents assimilate it, and rather than shoot it in the head, you cut its balls off, I guess. Which that ain't any way to go. So yeah, I think Ben is right. I think there's probably a lot still to be done on this bill. There's a lot of debate, and whether it can get done in time. Obviously, there's talk about another U.S. government shutdown, maybe delaying it, which is perfectly possible. And of course, yeah, it does look like the midterms are going to see a big shakeup in who controls both houses of Congress. Mm-hmm. So yeah, time is definitely of the essence. I do wonder though, the last 18 months has really sort of changed the impression of that many people have of crypto, because it has been so adopted and kind of co-opted by Trump and the MAGA movement. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, that support has been great for it, but in other ways, I think it has hardened a lot of people's attitude to it, and it has made it much more of a political beast. Many people see crypto as just sort of right coded, and that is unfortunate, because that is not what it should be. It shouldn't be right or left coded. It should be apolitical. And I do wonder whether, if we were to get if the Clarity Act were to be passed and it were to be assimilated like this, it would lose forever probably that outsider status that kind of made it so attractive in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I wonder maybe whether actually we need to, as an industry, what we're asking for, or what we've been wanting the wrong thing. We've been wanting mainstream acceptance. We've been wanting crypto to be, to mass adoption and all this sort of stuff. But mass adoption means, it appears to mean banks getting involved. It appears to mean no yield on stablecoins. It appears to be DeFi front ends, being targeted. It means KYC. Is that the kind of mass adoption that we want? No. So maybe we need to go back to, try and rediscover some sort of cypherpunk roots, because once they're gone, they're gone. Once Clarity passes, if it passes in its current form, and banks get this control, and banks are able to custody crypto and whatever, that's it. Probably game over.
Oh, that was such a good one. That's right. I mean, and we're all going to it like lemmings. Maybe at some point we'll just go off the cliff and just say, okay, TradFi, take us. and then it kind of just gets de-evolves from there. But it's going to take a lot of movement to get this clarity bill shot down. So maybe, Guy, if you could just make your way over to Congress, that would be fantastic, because it looks like you're one of the few working for us. Anyhow, gentlemen, great job on the questions and the answers. I appreciate it. Last one before we get into the little Q&A is this: if you had to build a super app for crypto using any kind of AI that you can, what would it be and why would you do it? Now, for me, like, I made this simple app where you just do like, you go to Gemini. I got to put a link in the description. You just click on report, and it'll give you like it'll spit out a daily report of what's going on, what's moving the markets potentially, and then, moving averages and TA stuff, which people tell me is very important, which I never really got into. But and then also, like, I did this and made a website for the local shelter, and now it's up. It's up on the. I integrated it, so now this is their actual website and donate and all that stuff. I'm not a coder, but it worked out pretty well. Damn, this thing's slow. Anyhow, what would you guys do? Guy, I'll start with you since you were just talking.
Sure. It's an interesting question. The thing that really interests me in crypto at the moment is X402, which is the protocol that Coinbase developed last year and open sourced, which basically makes micropayments possible. And I feel that we're entering a stage. I forget the exact figure, but more and more of actual internet traffic, an increasing amount of internet traffic, is AI agents. Actual human traffic on the internet is trending down. And I kind of feel that, at some point, these AI agents, to say nothing of, the big data scrapers and whatever, but these AI agents are going to need to have some degree of autonomy, some degree, be able to transact. Right. And, some of the interesting visions I've been pitched of the future is, this idea of sort of semi-autonomous AI agent assistance that we will, ideally be able to farm out a lot of the boring, mundane stuff that we do on the internet. But in order to do that, it's going to have to be, be able to transact sort of at least semi-autonomously. So I'm really interested to see something along those lines with X402, increased use of micropayments, because that uses not only the X402 protocol, but also stablecoins as well, which, as we've discussed many times, are crypto's current super app, the crypto product with the best product market fit. So I'd be really interested to see something along those lines. I'd also be interested to see something that simplifies self-custody, because I think that has been a big adoption. I think that is a big hurdle for people for regular everyday folk using crypto. I think the whole self-custody thing really frightens people, really puts people off. This idea of writing down seed words and if you lose them, that's it, So anything that makes self-custody solutions way more simple, and something that, if you don't risk losing a seed phrase and losing access to all of it, you're able to sort of pass it on to your descendants, etc. I think something like that would not only be very useful, but would also, destroy a lot of this kind of myth that's built up that crypto is, you're only ever a lost piece of paper away from, being completely screwed.
That's a good one. I'd like to see that, and then something that will like stave off away of some kind of scammers and hackers. Like when you get an email and it's obviously bad, it just reminds you every single time, like, hey, this is probably a scam. Everything's a scam. And then do you trust this? Then move from there. Ben, what do you think about this as far as like a super AI type of thing? I like what Guy said, especially because like on my app, for some reason, it can't get the moving averages right. So I just refer them to your site. So anyhow, what do you think as far as like an AI app that you could build?
I mean, if it's like a like a crypto app, right?
Yeah, it's just specific for crypto. Or did you already build it with Into the Cryptoverse? I'm just asking.
I mean, I think in order to get everyone to join, like my product's a very niche product, right? Like it's not going to appeal to like the masses necessarily. I think you would need a product that is it's sort of like the everything product, like the everything app. I mean, kind of Elon Musk talked about that at one point, like where you just kind of have the everything app. And for crypto, I mean, it could mean all sorts of things. Like it could mean like you can custody, you have self custody through the app. Maybe you can get stablecoin yield through the app. Maybe you can do payments. You know, one thing it'd be nice if they had like automatic tax reporting too.
That'd be nice.
Like, I feel like if you just have like a lot of different things that people need, and it's not like it's like they need it. It's not about whether they want. It's like they feel like they need it.
Right.
Like I feel like that is how you sort of break through, because you know, one of the reasons that you could argue that crypto has struggled for so long, especially the altcoin market, is because there hasn't really been, let's be honest, right? There hasn't really been a lot of utility. Maybe to some niche, maybe to some niche users. Like, I'm not saying there's nothing, but if you were to go out into the real world, we were to venture out of the cryptoverse for a few minutes and ask people, like, what do you use crypto for? Like, most people are probably gonna say nothing, you know, except to just gamble. So I think you need an app that allows them to do stuff that actually like helps it, like seamlessly helps them with stuff. I also think in the future, I mean, I don't really know if it's going to be a multi-chain world or not, but if it is, I think, you know, apps that, and I think there are already some that do this, but I think apps that really focus more on interoperability between chains would also be very helpful.
Huge.
And I think we've talked about this many, many times throughout the years, but again, like, it's kind of like right now, I'm on a Mac.
Right.
I don't know what Guy's on. I don't know what Rob's on. I don't care at all what they are on. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't matter to me. Right. So I feel like crypto, it'd be nice if we could get to the point where like there's more interoperability between chains and like there's just more seamless integration of everything. Because like Rob could be on a Windows machine and Guy could be spinning up Linux here, you know, and he could be on like Ubuntu or something, and none of us would know. And that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of it, is that like it all seamlessly integrates together. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like crypto necessarily seamlessly integrates together in a lot of different ways, but I also don't really know how many chains are going to be part of that future. I mean, I think Bitcoin will survive. Do I think others will? Probably. But 99.9999% of them should go to zero. They should, because they're not worth anything. They're just cash grabs. Like that is all they are. And I one of the ways I think that the industry could really benefit would be that if I feel, maybe you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like for the last 3 to 4 years, the industry hasn't really rewarded developer, like real development, as much as they maybe did try to do that in prior cycles. Feels like this cycle we've mostly just rewarded meme coins and cash grabs and that kind of stuff, where that's where the money's been going to. So it's kind of led to not really a lot of development in crypto, right?
Right.
If you think about the developments this cycle, what do you think of? Because what I think of is I think of ETFs. I think of like, you know, government like strategic reserves.
Right.
And like I think of obviously some regulation trying to go through, but what a lot of it is to me, like what a lot of it isn't even crypto specific. It's just like things to try to make the price go up. Like, oh, let's get the ETFs so that everyone else can buy, then the price can go up. Let's have the strategic reserve so that governments can buy it and the price can go up. But if you think about like what's being actually developed, I'm not saying there's nothing, and you guys would know this more than I would. I'm just saying like that's not what the bigger headlines this cycle have been. It's more so just been like, how do we get more money to come into the asset class, not how do we make the asset class better. And so now you look back on it and you see that the altcoin market has been bleeding to Bitcoin for the last 4 years. You see that the advanced decline index of the top 100 cryptocurrencies has been declining since 2021, right? Yes, total market cap has gone up, but that's only because Bitcoin has gone up. Most everything else has just bled and bled and bled and bled. So if we want crypto to be taken seriously, we have to stop with this like malinvestment of capital. Like people, I think, need to stop throwing all their money into these like gambling, altcoin, casino, meme coin stuff, and divert their money into projects where people are actually building, because then that'll incentivize more people to build.
Right.
If we incentivize people to launch meme coins, then that's what people are going to do. So yeah, but I think in order to have a nice app like that, we need to reward development. And I mean, I think one way, Gary Gensler resigned. Everyone thought it was going to be like this renaissance for the altcoin market. Instead, it just allowed everyone and their mom to launch their own meme coin without fear of what that can mean for them. So if you don't regulate the markets, which I don't think you need to, I'm a big believer in just like let the markets regulate themselves. But I do believe that if you don't regulate the markets will regulate themselves, and eventually people will stop throwing their money away into all this garbage. There's always going to be a few people, but the people that have been here for a few years, I think eventually will wise up and start putting their money where they should actually be putting it. And that's not into all the meme coins that just go to zero.
Well said again. I have to tell you, that poll that everybody's taking right now, who's more bearish? Ben's not bearish. He's really just telling the truth, which is we need to grow up. There's way too much speculation to move forward. So I got to hand it to both you guys. Great responses. I love doing this show. This is fantastic.
I don't even know, what poll are you talking about?
Oh, this is a poll that I put out just when you were talking.
Oh.
Beforehand, I said, who is more bearish? Rob from last week, where I told everybody they're not going to make it and they're not going to be part of the 1% because they're a bunch of failures, which was arguably pretty negative. And then what Ben was talking about as far as relief versus a real rally. But that last part, like I said, it's just a real talk where you say we gotta grow up. We can't keep putting this on.
Hold on a second. But think about this though. Like Bitcoin is down 70% against silver over the last year, right? Like sometimes, like over the long haul, the bears sound smart and the bulls make money. We know that, but it is true that crypto has been stuck in traffic on Struggle Street for like the last 12 months. So, yes, I've been bearish for a few months, and I still remain bearish, but sometimes the bears are right? And usually the bears are right in the midterm years. And so, like, based on that, I feel like it's not. I feel like it's a risk worth taking to say that, yeah, like this is probably going to be a lower high. Maybe I'm wrong, but seems like there's a good chance it will be.
Very good chance. All right. Well, again, well said, gentlemen. I appreciate you. Now let's get into a little Q&A, and then we'll get out of here. We're just going to take a couple of questions and get going. So let's see. This is a good one. Are any of you buying or selling right now as we speak?
I'm not buying. I mean, I'm considering selling after what Ben has said, but no, I mean, I'm just kind of holding fire at the moment.
Sounds good. Ben, buying, selling, nothing?
No, I'm just holding what I have. I mean, I sold some a few months ago, but I still have like 30% of the Bitcoin stack that I've been holding. Still have 30% of it, and I'll just hold it regardless, even if it is lower high. So what? I'll go down with the ship if I have to with that, I guess. I'll keep some just in case the super cycle guys are right.
Hey, it could be. Now, I'm short-term bearish, like I talk about, but I still buy Bitcoin every single day. And I use these things called risk levels. And as they go down, I start to buy more. I'm waiting for that, what Ben talked about, the 200-week moving average. Once we get there, I have to go very, very heavy, but we're a long way from that. Somebody says, are you guys interested in a Starbucks Bear Cup? Very funny. I like that one. And then this one, this is from Jimmy. What happens to the markets after the Supreme Court finally rules on tariffs? We were supposed to get an answer yesterday from the Supreme Court, but it looks like they're going to defer. Guy, have you been following this?
A little bit, yeah. I'm afraid I'm very bearish on this because the way I see it, I'm not sure how any decision the Supreme Court makes translates into a bid for crypto, because I think if the court rules against Trump and says, okay, you've got to repay this tariff revenue, that is going to trigger a big surge, I think, in various stocks, particularly importers, anything that's relied on supply chains. So under that scenario, I kind of see maybe a lot of people selling out of crypto because, as we know, it trades all the time. It's pretty liquid, especially the big ones, in order to chase the gains in the stock market that will result from that. So if it's good news, I think crypto will sell off, and if it's bad news, I think crypto will also sell off because that's what crypto does. I'm sorry, I can't give you any sort of bullishness around that. I really hope I'm wrong, but I mean, it just seems like that's such a hot potato, that decision. I don't blame them for just sort of punting it a little further into the long grass. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep doing that.
Yeah, you're right.
Rob, I know you want to move to the next question, but I just want to add something to this because, like, I agree with what Guy said. Like, I do agree with him, but I saw like a funny tweet the other day from someone where they said, "Imagine telling someone in like February that the stock market was going to sell off on the implementation of the tariffs, and then imagine telling them a year later that they're going to sell off on the reversal."
Exactly. It's a rational market that we have, isn't it? It's just pretty much how it goes. Hey, let's wrap this up by just giving everybody's favorite, the predictions, but we'll give them the reality. What's the lowest price that Bitcoin can go in a bear market? Who wants to go with this one? Guy, you want to start with this?
50K.
Sounds good. Ben?
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. I think normally you look at, for me, I think a realistic target is 60 to 70K. That's like a 50% drawdown from the high, which seems reasonable, especially considering we topped on apathy rather than euphoria. So maybe like a 50 to 55% drawdown. But it's not impossible for there to be a steeper drawdown closer to what Guy said of like 70%. Like, that's absolutely possible. You could go back to where the price was when the ETF launched or something. That was around that was even less than 50K, right? So, but I think for me, personally, like I don't like, while I'm bearish now, I think if we were at the 200-week moving average, like I'd probably just start buying Bitcoin. Like, even though there's a chance that we could go to 40K, there's a chance we could go to 50K. There's a chance we could go lower. Like, I feel like right now it makes more sense to be deterministic about it being bearish. But if we're at like 60K, I'm not really sure how much more if I could continue to be that deterministic about the bear market continuing, even though it absolutely could.
Sounds good to me. You know what? I'm going to go with you guys. Guy said 50. Ben, you said somewhere around 60. 200 weeks moving average around 57. I would buy anything below 60, and I would buy heavily. That's just me, not financial advice, and that's it.
I think below 60 would be a pretty good area. Maybe that means we won't go there.
Right. Well, everybody, first of all, thanks for coming in. I appreciate everybody. Those are great answers, really good answers. Everybody, if you're not following Guy and Ben, I think you should be. There's links in the description for that. Also for the Coin Bureau Club and then, of course, in the CRYPTOVERSE Coin Bureau Club. I just got an email. You guys might be switching up some things. I would definitely look to what they're doing over there. That's it for today, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by. We are on Guy's channel next week, so we'll see you then when everything is even greener. Anyhow, have a great day.
See ya.
Cheers.